a man accused of killing 4 of his own children faces new charges. The bodies were discovered in the trunk of a car at a Johnston County home 5 months after the murders.
This is a horrific story. New in the last few hours, Wellington Dickens III appeared in court for the first time. He was denied bond and charged with 3 additional murders. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Ashley Rowe. The children were ages 6, 9, 10, and 18. Officials say their father called 911 and confessed to killing them. We have live team coverage of this tragic case with new reaction and insight into the family at the center of this. Let's begin with WRAL's Sean Gallagher live with new details in the investigation.
A father calls 911 on a Monday night. His voice is calm. He tells the operator he's killed his children, all 4 of them. Their bodies are in the trunk of a car, in his garage, and they've been there for months. This is the story of 38-year-old Wellington Delano Dickens III, an Iraq War veteran and widower from Zebulon, North Carolina. He murdered his 3 biological children, ages 6, 9, and 10, along with his 18-year-old stepson. But here's the twist that makes this case different. He didn't kill them all at once. He killed them one by one over 5 months. May, August, September, 4 separate murders, 4 separate trips to the garage, 4 children placed in the same car trunk. What makes this worse than a typical family annihilation? His 3-year-old son was alive in the house the entire time, playing, eating, sleeping, while his dead siblings decomposed in a Honda sedan just steps away in the garage. October 28, 2025, 10:09 p.m., Johnston County 911 receives a call. The address is Springtooth Drive in Zebulon, North Carolina, a quiet suburban neighborhood about 25 miles east of Raleigh. New construction, young families, safe streets. The caller identifies himself as Wellington Delano Dickens III. His voice is steady, no panic, no crying. He tells the operator something that makes her blood run cold. I killed my children. Deputies from the Johnston County Sheriff's Office race to the scene. When they arrive, they find Dickens waiting outside his home. He's cooperative, calm, almost robotic. He tells them his 3-year-old son is alive inside the house. Safe, unharmed, but 4 of his other children are dead. Where are they? In the trunk of a car. In the garage, deputies enter the garage. There's a 2-door Honda sedan parked inside. They open the trunk. The smell hits them immediately. Human remains, multiple bodies. Decomposed. The remains had been there for a long period of time. But here's what doesn't add up. Neighbors hadn't noticed anything. No strange smells, no missing children, no welfare checks. One neighbor said her son smelled something very, very strong about a month ago, so strong it almost made him vomit, but nobody called the police. Nobody checked on the family. The question is, how did 4 children disappear without anyone noticing? Before we go any further, if this case is gripping you the way it's gripping me, smash that like button, drop your theories in the comments, and subscribe because this story gets darker with every detail. Now let's get into what happened. Lee Dickens, 6 years old. Zoe Dickens, 9 years old. Wellington Dickens IV, 10 years old. Sean Brassfield, 18 years old. 4 children who should be alive today. Lee should be in 1st grade learning to read. Zoe should be playing with friends and doing homework. Wellington should be in 5th grade, maybe playing sports. Sean was technically an adult but still living at home, still part of the family. They all lived in a recently built subdivision in Zebulon, a tight-knit neighborhood where people knew each other. Their father was Wellington Delano Dickens III, an Iraq War veteran, a widower, a single father raising 5 children on his own. His wife, Stephanie Dickens, had died on April 21, 2024. She was 37 years old and 3 months pregnant. She died at home from complications of a miscarriage. Dickens told authorities she had been bleeding excessively the night before, but refused to go to the hospital. Doctors ruled her death natural. The family had a history of refusing medical treatment. In 2016, WakeMed Hospital reported them to North Carolina Social Services. They claimed Dickens and his wife left the hospital with their newborn baby girl against medical orders. The baby had jaundice, a condition that can cause brain damage. They never came back for follow-up appointments. After Stephanie's death, neighbors tried to help. The community brought food, offered support. One neighbor said there was an outpouring of support. But over time, Dickens withdrew. He became more of a recluse. Neighbors stopped seeing him outside. They stopped seeing the children playing. One neighbor saw him about a month before his arrest and said he seemed off. His mind was somewhere else. The 5 children were all homeschooled. They weren't enrolled in Wake County or Johnston County schools, no teachers checking on them, no administrators asking questions. They were isolated, hidden from the world. And that isolation would prove fatal, because starting in May 2025, Dickens began killing his children, one by one. When deputies arrived on October 28th, they immediately secured the 3-year-old child who was alive inside the house. The little boy was unharmed, physically healthy, but emotionally, he'd been living in a house of death for months. Deputies called for backup. The Johnston County Sheriff's Office, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the State Medical Examiner's Office. Crime scene investigators descended on the quiet subdivision. Yellow tape went up. Tents were erected in the driveway. Neighbors came outside, confused, terrified. Police cruisers blocked the road. No one could get in or out. Inside the garage, investigators began the grim task of documenting the scene. The Honda sedan, the trunk, the remains. They took photos, collected evidence. The smell was overwhelming. The remains were in various stages of decomposition, some more deteriorated than others. That told investigators something crucial. These children hadn't all died at the same time. This wasn't a murder-suicide attempt. This wasn't a family annihilation in one violent episode. This was something far more calculated, far more sinister. Dickens was arrested on the spot. He was charged initially with 1 count of murder, but investigators knew more charges were coming. They obtained a search warrant for the house. What they found inside painted a disturbing picture. A home where death had been present for months. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives interviewed Dickens for hours. And what he told them was chilling. The arrest warrants initially listed May 1st, 2025 as the date of the killings. But as Sheriff Steve Bizzell explained in a press conference on October 30th, the investigation revealed something far worse. Based on interviews with Dickens, investigators determined the murders happened over several months. The timeline was brutal. May 2025, 6-year-old Leah Dickens was killed first. Her tiny body was placed in the trunk. August 2025, 9-year-old Zoe Dickens was murdered. She joined her sister in the trunk. Late August or early September 2025, 10-year-old Wellington Dickens IV was killed, the third body in the trunk. September 2025, 18-year-old Sean Brassfield was murdered last, the fourth and final victim. 4 children, 5 months, 1 trunk. Dickens gave investigators this timeline himself. He admitted to killing them. He admitted to storing their bodies. But he wouldn't say how he killed them. The State Medical Examiner's Office is still working to determine cause of death. The level of decomposition makes it difficult, but the evidence is clear. This was premeditated, calculated, cold-blooded. Each murder happened separately. Each child was killed and then hidden, and life went on. Dickens continued caring for his 3-year-old son, feeding him, bathing him, putting him to bed, while 4 dead children were rotting in the garage. The 911 call released days later revealed Dickens' chilling confession. "It's my fault," he told the operator. His voice was flat, emotionless, no remorse, no breakdown, just a factual statement. "It's my fault. I killed them. They're in the trunk." Detectives also discovered something else. Dickens had a prior accusation of child neglect or abuse. The details haven't been fully released, but it suggests this wasn't the first time authorities were concerned about these children. The breakthrough came when Dickens simply gave up. He called 911 and confessed. Nobody forced him, nobody caught him, he just decided it was time. Wellington Delano Dickens III appeared in court on October 29, 2025 for his first appearance. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. The judge denied bond. Dickens will remain in the Johnston County Jail until trial. In court, prosecutors laid out the charges, 1 count of first-degree murder for each child. The possible maximum punishments are life in prison or death. North Carolina still has the death penalty, and this case might qualify. Multiple victims, children, premeditation. If there was ever a case that screamed death penalty, this is it. But Dickens showed no emotion in court. No tears, no outburst, just blank stares. His next court appearance is scheduled for November. The State Medical Examiner is still working to officially identify all 4 victims and determine cause of death. The bodies were so decomposed that identification is difficult, but DNA testing will confirm what everyone already knows. These are Dickens' children, and he killed them. The trial will likely take months or even years. Defense attorneys will probably argue mental illness. PTSD from his service in Iraq, the trauma of losing his wife, the stress of being a single father to 5 children. They'll paint him as a broken man who snapped, but prosecutors will argue this wasn't a snap. This was 5 months of deliberate murder, one child at a time. That's not a mental break, that's evil. The community wants justice. The neighbors who brought food after Stephanie died, the people who tried to help, they want to know why. Why did he kill them? Why did he keep killing? And why did he wait so long to confess? Those answers may never come, because even if Dickens talks, his reasoning won't make sense. There's no logical explanation for murdering your own children. The trial will be a media circus. Court TV will cover it. True crime podcasts will dissect every detail. And somewhere in all that noise, 4 children will be reduced to evidence. Photos, timelines, autopsy reports. Their lives will be defined by their deaths, and that's the real tragedy. The 3-year-old survivor was taken into protective custody immediately. Social services placed him with family members. That little boy will grow up knowing his father murdered his siblings, knowing he lived in a house with their dead bodies, knowing he was the only one spared. The psychological damage is unimaginable. Child psychologists say trauma like this can affect development for life. Trust issues, attachment disorders, PTSD. That child will need years of therapy. And even then, the scars will never fully heal. The neighbors are traumatized too. Terry Fuller, who mowed the family's lawn when the grass got too high, told reporters he hadn't seen the kids playing outside in a while, but he didn't think anything of it. Miranda's daughter said she just saw the kids walking to and from the school bus, except they were homeschooled. So who are those kids? Sherry Burton told reporters her son smelled something terrible coming from the house about a month ago. So strong it almost made him vomit, but they didn't call police. They didn't check on the family. Now they'll live with that guilt forever. What if they had called? What if they had knocked on the door? Could Sean Brassfield have been saved? He died in September. That smell was probably already from the 3 younger children. Maybe Sean was still alive. Maybe he could have been rescued. We'll never know. Dickens' great-uncle Charles Moore spoke to reporters. He said Dickens was an Iraq War veteran. He hadn't seen him in about a year, but he seemed fine. He had a little problem, Moore said. He was in the service and he had a problem ever since he came back. Moore didn't elaborate, but he clearly meant PTSD, mental health issues from combat. Moore said he was shocked when he heard the news. You hear it, talk about it happening to other people. You never think it'll be your family. The extended family is now left to pick up the pieces. Plan 4 funerals. Raise a traumatized 3-year-old. Answer impossible questions from friends and strangers. And live with the knowledge that Wellington Dickens III, their relative, is a child killer. Stephanie Dickens' family is also grieving. She died just 18 months ago. Now 4 of her children are dead too. Only the youngest survived. Stephanie's death was ruled natural. But questions remain. Did she really refuse medical treatment? Or did Dickens prevent her from going to the hospital? Was her death really an accident? Investigators aren't reopening that case, but the suspicion will always be there. To understand how a father could murder his children one by one over 5 months, you have to understand family annihilators. These are people, usually men, who kill their entire family. Research shows there are different types. Some do it out of desperation, financial ruin, fear of being exposed. They see death as the only escape. Others do it for control. They'd rather kill their family than lose them. If I can't have them, nobody can. Then there are the ones motivated by revenge. Usually against a spouse, kill the children to hurt the partner. But Dickens doesn't fit neatly into any category. His wife was already dead. He wasn't facing financial ruin. He wasn't about to lose custody. So what was his motive? Sheriff Bizzell said investigators haven't determined a motive yet, but psychologists have theories. Dickens was an Iraq War veteran. His great-uncle confirmed he had problems since returning from service. That suggests PTSD, combat trauma. Veterans with PTSD experience nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, anger, and emotional numbness. Between 11 and 20% of Iraq War veterans develop PTSD, the stress of combat, the trauma of seeing friends die, the violence. It changes your brain, makes you see the world differently. Then his father died in a car crash in 2023. Then his wife died from a miscarriage in April 2024. 2 catastrophic losses in less than 2 years. Grief, isolation, the stress of being a single father to 5 children, no job mentioned in reports, living in a new neighborhood where he didn't have deep connections, homeschooling all 5 kids, refusing medical treatment for them. That's a recipe for a mental breakdown. But even with PTSD, grief and stress, most people don't murder their children. Millions of veterans come home with PTSD and never hurt anyone. Millions of widowers raise children alone without killing them. So what was different about Dickens? The timeline suggests a progression. He killed Leah in May, 3 months after his wife died, then nothing for 3 months. Then he killed Zoe in August. Then Wellington in late August or early September, just weeks apart. Then Sean in September. The killings accelerated. That suggests his mental state was deteriorating. The first murder might have been impulsive, a moment of rage or despair, but then he had to live with it, had to hide the body, had to lie, and maybe that broke something in him. Maybe he decided if one child was dead, they all had to die, or maybe he just couldn't cope anymore. Each child was a reminder of his failure, his inability to hold his family together, so he eliminated them. One by one, the fact that he kept his 3-year-old alive is significant. That was his youngest, the one who needed him most, the one who couldn't question him or challenge him. Maybe that child represented hope, or maybe Dickens just wasn't finished yet. Maybe the 3-year-old was next. We'll never know, because Dickens called 911 before he could complete his plan. This case is still developing. The trial hasn't started yet. If you want updates on this case as they come out, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Now let's talk about the unanswered questions. The biggest question, why did Wellington Dickens murder 4 of his children? Sheriff Bizzell admitted investigators still don't know the motive. Dickens confessed to the killings. He gave them a timeline, but he hasn't explained why. Was it PTSD? Was it grief over his wife's death? Was it the stress of single parenthood? Was it something darker? Did he blame the children for something? Another mystery. Why did he spare the 3-year-old? 4 children dead, 1 alive. What made that child different? Was it age? Was the 3-year-old too young to understand? Or was Dickens planning to kill him too and just ran out of time? And why did he confess? He'd been hiding the bodies for 5 months. Nobody suspected anything. Nobody reported the children missing. He could have kept going, could have killed the 3-year-old and then himself. Instead, he called 911 and turned himself in. Why? Did guilt finally catch up with him? Did he want to be stopped? Was he hoping for some kind of relief? Then there's the question of the timeline. Investigators say the murders happened in May, August, late August or early September and September. But how do they know? Dickens told them. But can they trust him? What if he's lying? What if he killed them all at once and is trying to make it seem less brutal by spreading it out? The medical examiner is still working to determine cause of death. But with that level of decomposition, it may be impossible to know for sure. Another mystery, how did nobody notice? Neighbors said they hadn't seen the kids outside in a while. One neighbor smelled something terrible, but nobody called police. Why not? Is it because people don't want to be nosy? Because they don't want to get involved? How many warning signs did people miss? And what about the school system? These kids were homeschooled, but are there any checks and balances? Does anyone follow up to make sure homeschooled children are actually being educated, or are they just invisible? Finally, what about Stephanie Dickens' death? She died at home from a miscarriage. Dickens said she refused medical treatment. Doctors ruled it natural. But was it really? Dickens murdered 4 of his children. What's to stop him from murdering his wife too? Investigators aren't reopening that case, but maybe they should. These questions will haunt this case forever. And some of them may never be answered. Here's what we know for certain. On Monday, October 28, 2025, at 10:09 p.m., Wellington Delano Dickens III called Johnston County 911 and confessed to killing his children. Deputies arrived at his home on Springtooth Drive in Zebulon, North Carolina. Dickens was cooperative. He told them his 3-year-old son was alive inside the house. He told them 4 of his other children were dead in the trunk of a car in the garage. Deputies found the 3-year-old unharmed. They found human remains in the trunk of a 2-door Honda sedan. The remains had been there for a long period of time. Dickens was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Based on interviews, investigators determined the murders happened over several months. In May 2025, Dickens killed 6-year-old Lee Dickens. In August 2025, he killed 9-year-old Zoe Dickens. In late August or early September 2025, he killed 10-year-old Wellington Dickens IV. In September 2025, he killed 18-year-old Sean Brassfield. The state medical examiner is still working to officially identify the remains and determine cause of death. Dickens is being held without bond in Johnston County Jail. His next court appearance is in November 2025. The 3-year-old survivor is in protective custody with family. That's the truth. A father systematically murdered his children over 5 months. He stored their bodies in a car trunk in his garage. He continued living in the house, caring for his youngest son, pretending everything was normal, until one night he called 911 and confessed. We don't know why he killed them. We don't know how he killed them. We don't know why he spared the 3-year-old. We don't know why he finally confessed. But we know 4 children are dead. And their father is the one who killed them. This case represents one of the darkest forms of betrayal. A father is supposed to protect his children, keep them safe, love them unconditionally. Wellington Delano Dickens did the opposite. He murdered them, one by one, over 5 months, and then he stored their bodies like garbage in a car trunk. Leah was 6 years old. She should be losing her first tooth, learning to ride a bike, playing with dolls. Zoe was 9 years old. She should be in 4th grade, making friends, discovering her interests. Wellington was 10 years old. He should be playing video games, getting excited about middle school, planning his future. Sean was 18 years old. He was an adult. He should be thinking about college, getting a job, starting his life. Instead, they're all dead, murdered by the person who was supposed to love them most. And a 3-year-old boy will grow up with the knowledge that his father killed his siblings and kept their bodies in the garage while they lived together. The trauma is generational. That child will carry this for life. His children will hear the story. His grandchildren will Google their great-grandfather's name and find articles about this case. The damage is permanent. We want to understand why this happened. We want a reason, a diagnosis, something that makes sense. But sometimes there is no good explanation. Sometimes evil just exists. And Wellington Delano Dickens III is that evil. If this case affected you, hold your children a little tighter tonight. Check on your neighbors, don't ignore warning signs, and remember that behind every true crime case are real victims whose lives mattered. Leah Dickens, Zoe Dickens, Wellington Dickens IV, Sean Brassfield. Say their names, remember them, not as bodies in a trunk, but as children who deserve to live. Rest in peace. You deserved so much better. Thanks for watching. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of harming yourself or others, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.